Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson. She has been dubbed America's worst mum by the media and frankly wears it as a badge of honour. Lenore Skenazy, New York Times bestselling author of Free Range Kids and co-founder of Let Grow alongside the most relevant psychologist in the world right now, Jonathan Haidt, sparked a cultural revolution with one simple act. She let her 9-year-old ride the New York subway alone. Now, if you've been to New York, you know that there would be some tension in your shoulders if you allowed that to happen. But that's what she did, then wrote an article about it because she was a journo. And my goodness, didn't the world blow up? Now, fresh from the TED main stage with her talk, Why You Should Spend Less Time with Your Kids, Lenore is back and she's one of our favourites. We'll talk with Lenore Skenazy next. Stay tuned. G'day and welcome. This is the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. It's so good to be with you. Thanks for choosing to spend some time with us today. If you've been listening to the pod for a while, you know Lenore Skenazy. She's the woman who became America's worst mum, in inverted commas, in air quotes, for letting her 9-year-old ride the New York subway alone and then turned that controversial moment into a movement. As co-founder of Let Grow with Jonathan Haidt and the author of the New York Times bestselling Free Range Kids, Lenore has been working hard to get the message across that kids need independence for years. But her recent TED Talk, Why You Should Spend Less Time with Your Kids, delivered on the main stage at TED 2025 in Vancouver, may be her most important message yet. It's only a 13-minute talk. We'll probably talk more about it today than the talk actually goes for. She dismantles what she calls the terrible lie that's been driving both parents and kids crazy, the belief that children can't handle anything on their own. So today we're diving deep into that talk, exploring why the adult takeover of childhood has created an anxiety crisis and discovering why the most powerful learning happens when parents step back. Lenore, welcome back to Happy Families.
Very happy to be here, even though, how many miles away am I? Is it like
half a world?
15,000?
Yeah. You can't get much further. Right. Yeah, but thank you.
Yeah.
It's just a delight to talk to you. Let's talk about your TED Talk. That's the whole reason I wanted to chat with you. I sat down, watched the entire 13 minutes. They've shortened them, and
they do.
There is so much in there. So I just want to talk about the title for a sec. If you're a helicopter parent, you're going to clutch your pearls. Why you should spend less time with your kids. You call it exposing, and this is a direct quote, the terrible lie that kids can't handle anything on their own. When did unsupervised childhood, which is what I grew up with, and I assume what you grew up with.
Yes, of course.
When did that become redefined as neglect? And what are we actually afraid of?
I'd say it started changing. It didn't happen overnight, but it certainly started changing in the United States. And I have a feeling, I'm sorry to say, that we sort of lead the world in fear exports, And for us, it started in the 80s with a couple of things that really shifted the landscape. One was cable television, which birthed the 24-hour news cycle, which meant that we had to come up with horrible things that people could be watching almost like wallpaper in the background. Oh, another horrible thing. And then also in the States, and I doubt you did this dumb thing, but we started putting the pictures of quote unquote missing children on milk cartons. Did you ever do that?
I'm not aware that ever happened, but we saw it on American TV, and conversations about the possibility of child abductions are a thing. And today there are, with social media and with text messaging, there are Amber Alerts and all these things that tell you when a child has gone missing in a local area, which I might add happens so staggeringly infrequently. In fact, you share a stat about that I'm going to come to later because it's one of the best lines of your TED Talk. But yeah, Australia is definitely behind the United States. You're definitely the way. But I've watched it. I mean, for the last 20 years, I've been running parenting workshops around this country, and I've watched the increased intensity from a parenting perspective as we start to feel like if we are not supervising children, if we don't have them in structured activities, then are we being neglectful?
Well, that is the fear, and there's sort of two parallel fears running. One is, well, there's more than two, but the biggies are that something terrible will happen to them physically. They'll be abducted or hurt, or they'll be run over by a car. And then there's the fear that they'll fall behind. And the terrible thing about that one is that it really becomes this self-fulfilling cycle where, well, my kids want to go play outside, but there's no one outside. Why? Because they're all in travel soccer. Well, if they're in travel soccer, I guess my kid has to be in travel soccer, or they'll have no one to play with. And then the next kids come outside and wonder where my kids are, and my kids are in travel soccer. So The fall behind thing is sort of multifaceted as well, because there's the fear that they won't be with their peers. And then there's also the fear that kids who are in organized activities are getting more out of their childhood, whatever more is. They're getting more instruction, more opportunities, more intensive cultivation that will help them in the long run. Whereas if they simply played, they're sort of, wasting their time, lying fallow. And so, what are you about to? Oh, your Range, one of my favorite
I was going to
books.
ask, are you
Yes, I
familiar with
love.
David Epstein's book
Not
Range?
only, oh, yes, I used to work with his wife.
Oh, wow. Okay. Small world.
Yes,
I mean, this is a book that says don't get your kids
yes.
into early specialization or structured activities too young, because while some will shoot ahead of the pack, if you peak too early, it doesn't leave much for the rest of your life. And overwhelmingly, the people who are most successful throughout the length of life, and life is long, they tend to potter here and go there and try this and do that. And they might often look quite ordinary during their childhood and adolescence. And it's not until their 20s, 30s, or even their 40s that they really shoot off. So, I mean, this really resonates because it's one of my favorite books as well, Range by David
That
Epstein.
is such a fantastic book. And what he points out is that the power of range, of doing different things, is manifold. I mean, first of all, it's fun. You're not just stuck waking up every morning and playing baseball again like Groundhog Day. Secondly, kids are getting injured at astounding rates now because they are overusing the muscles. Nature never intended kids from age 5 to 15 to be practicing their pitches every day. I mean, that's just too much for their bodies. There's something called the Tommy John injury that's just sort of exploding. And then also the thing that you get out of trying a lot of different things is what David talks about is the power of analogy. And that is that you were a baker and now you go to work for NASA. And NASA is filled with rocket engineers who say, "Oh, we don't have to worry about those O-rings on the outside of the Challenger. They'll be fine. We've done our calculations." And the baker says, "Yeah, I thought so too, but I once had an oven that exploded because it had, too much bread." And so if you have an outside voice and perspective, you can make an analogy that somebody who hasn't had another experience can't, because they just know what's right in front of them. So I see that every day. I mean, I think there's so many cool analogies to be made just in life. Like, oh my God, that reminds me of the time. Anytime you do it, it reminds me of the time. You're making something richer because you're bringing in this other experience. So he's just right. And my favorite thing I tell parents who are worried, oh my God, my kid is, majoring poli-sci. What's he going to do? And they'll never get a job. And I'm like, what they really should be doing at college is just giving you you pay your money, and then for 4 years they go and work in 20 different companies, and they realize oh my God, I thought accounting was boring, but it's so fun. Or, oh, I really hate working with kids. Why am I an education major? And by actually having real experiences, you get to see what you are good at, what satisfies you. And instead, we give kids 4 years of college studying something out of books, and we say we're preparing them for the world, and actually we're doing the opposite. We're keeping them from the world during their prime years of 18 to 21. And so his idea is that the more world you can have your kids experience, the better. And of course, what's happening in childhood is less and less world as it shrinks to the backseat of the minivan and a 5-point harness with an iPad going off to travel soccer.
Brilliant. Kate Reid is a former Formula One engineer, an Australian woman who decided that she wanted to leave the Formula One world and the loud noises and the fast cars and everything associated with that. And she opened up a croissant bakery, literally is known as, it's called Loon Bakery. It's in Melbourne. It's considered the perfect croissant. It's the world's best croissant. And so she took that analogy, that
and so fast.
That's right. Yeah, if you want speedy croissants, you'll get them. So I just love that idea. I'm also reflecting on the earlier part of what you said. About 5 years ago, we lived in Brisbane, the capital of Queensland, and we would drive up and down the street as we went from A to B, doing whatever we were doing. And I consistently pointed out to my wife that we were living in a suburb that was rich, teeming with young children. But we never saw them riding their bikes. We never saw them in the street. We only ever saw them at the park with parental supervision. Whereas, like where we live now, we're in a coastal town, and we see kids walking and riding scooters, and we see kids out all the time. It seems to me that, well, I'm not quite sure what drives the difference, whether there's an economic difference or whether there's a cultural difference. Do you have any insight into who is most likely to keep their kids close and who is most likely to give them that What would I call it? Like benign neglect?
Yeah, people like the term benign neglect. It disturbs me a teeny bit, only in a sort of silly way, in that it labels, even though it's funny, neglect as, and of course it's not neglect, it's trust. Benign
Right.
trust. Yes, that's what
Ah,
you're giving them. It's interesting to me because not knowing, either of these places, I don't know what makes one so free range and the other one not. But what I'm trying to do with Let Grow, which is the nonprofit that I run now, is trying to make it normal again for everything to be like your coastal town. Because once a few people start letting their kids, walk to the store, ride their bikes, then other kids see them. It's like, well, can I walk? I mean, this happened with our own kid. And the mother of another kid who was way bigger said, well, my kid can walk to school if he can walk with yours. So it's like, okay.
wow.
And so that, suddenly it was twice as many kids were walking to school. And once it becomes normal and you don't fear being judged for being a neglectful parent or heedless or too busy, then you're off to the races. And also, not only are you not worrying about judging, but then the kids get used to being outside. We just did a study with the Harris poll. They're the apex predators of the survey world,
Yeah.
and they surveyed kids age 8 to 12, and one of the questions that they asked, thanks to us, was if you have your choice of how to spend time with your friends. You can spend time with them just like you're talking about, riding your bikes, hanging out outside, unstructured, or you can be in an organized activity like ballet or soccer or art class, or you can be online with your friends, either chatting, Snapchat, whatever, or playing games, video games. Which would you prefer? And do you know the answer?
I haven't seen the poll, but my guess, my hope would be that kids would say, give me unstructured time where there's no one around and I can choose whatever I want to do over the other two.
That is what happened.
Yeah.
And second was the structured activities, and a distant third was online. And so what's interesting is that kids want what you're seeing in your neighborhood, and we think that they're desperate to be on their phones. Oh, they're so addicted to their phones. I can't get my kid off a screen. He just likes that screen time. Of course you like screen time if there's nothing else to do. If that's where you can go and meet with your friends and hang out and make jokes and go on adventures, happens to be in 2D, okay, not as good as 3D, but that's where I'll go. But if you could open the door again, kids would be outside. And so the real goal of my real goal is to make it normal again, to open the door. And one of the I'm always trying to come up with catchy phrases. And one of them is take away the phone and open the door. Because I keep hearing take away the phone and then come up with a fun activity for your child to do. Why not read a book together? How about drawing? Why don't you watch an educational documentary about the history of the slug? And it means that parents are stuck with no escape, right? They're just, it used to be they could say go outside. And if you can't say go outside, well, you sort of say go online. But if you can't say go online, it's like go crazy, because you are going to have to spend from 3 in the afternoon till 8 at night as the cruise director / personal tutor for your child. And that's not going to work.
Yeah, events management is exhausting. This is the Happy Families podcast. If you've been listening to the pod for a while, you know Lenore Skenazy. She's the woman who became America's worst mum for letting her 9-year-old ride the New York subway alone and then turned that controversial moment into a movement. Her recent TED Talk, Why You Should Spend Less Time with Your Kids, delivered on the main stage at TED 2025 in Vancouver, may be her most important message yet. It's a nice segue into something else that you said in your talk that really grabbed me. You said that the most teachable moments happen when parents aren't there, which is so counterintuitive, right? We're in a culture that's obsessed with quality time and enrichment activities. Walk us through what actually happens in a child's brain, what happens to their confidence levels when they solve problems without our intervention in their environment.
Well, first of all, one of the reasons that we're solving their problems, 2 reasons. One is it's fun to solve problems. You do feel smart, you feel competent. I've been doing this for so many years. And then recently, a pastor's wife in Texas said to me, well, it's obvious. I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, independence leads to competence and competence leads to confidence. I was like, wow, that's pretty great. How come I never thought of that? But she's right. It's not even that independence directly leads to confidence. It leads to you figuring things out. The best example I have of this is that the Wall Street Journal ran an article on how to raise a free-range kid in, today's society. Why didn't they talk to me? I wrote the book. But anyways, they didn't. And they interviewed this mom who said, as a kid, she just loved going to the creek. She would spend hours there, looking at the shells and, I don't know, tickling the fish, whatever she did. She loved it. And she wanted to give her child, the same experience. And she said, and thank God she could, because she could give her child a phone. And then the kid was going to this much vaunted creek one day. Kid was 8, and her bike chain fell off. And the mom was so grateful because thanks to the phone, the kid could call the dad, and the dad drove over and fixed the chain, and then she could go to the creek. And she was happy. The mom said, and I was so relieved because this way my kid could have the same experience as me. And I'm like, that is the antithetical, completely opposite experience of what you had, because the kid dialed the concierge who came and, provided quick and helpful service. And not only did she not figure out how to put the chain on her bike, and truth be told, I have no idea how to fix a chain on a bike. But not only did the kid not figure it out, but the parents didn't see that the kid could figure it out. Right? And so
even if it means that the child reaches out to another adult who's nearby and says, I'm stuck, I've fiddled with this, I don't know what to do, can I get some help? The ability to reach out and trust another adult in that spot is better than ringing dad, right? You learn that people are safe.
Anything is better than ringing dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So either that, or you don't fix the chain and you hide the bike in a bush and you walk home, or you hitchhike, or whatever, or you limp home with the broken bike. But anything that solves a problem makes you feel proud, and having somebody else solve the problem makes you feel fine, but needy. You're not the person who is rising to the occasion, and we keep taking away the occasions from our kids. So you ask, what does a kid get with the teachable moment? A teachable moment then would have been talking to the stranger, hiding the bike, coming home with the broken thing, fixing it, turning it into a unicycle, anything other than, Dad, my bike chain's broken.
Yeah. In my upcoming book about boys, I quote a guy called Brett McKay. He runs a website and podcast called The Art of Manliness. And he's got this.
Oh, yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So he's got this incredible article where he talks about all of these, like Steve McQueen and Sean Connery and all of these icons of the movie industry from decades gone by. And he talks about their lives before they turned 18 or 19 or 20. And these guys, they just had the most rich and varied and extraordinary lives. And then he asks the question, are we raising the least interesting generation? As I listen to you share the story about the bike chain falling off, I'm thinking, when your child comes home, even if they've had to walk, I'll do it in miles because it makes more sense for an American, let's say 5 miles home.
Thank you. We have no idea what a kilometer is. Never heard of it.
It's base 10. It's so easy. Anyway, I digress.
Is it an animal?
But you end up getting home and you've got this incredible story to tell because of all the things that happen, and your life becomes more interesting because you're doing hard things and finding yourself in tough spots. And I love it. Anyway, the TED Talk, once again, is called Why You Should Spend Less Time with Your Kids. It's worth listening to. We'll link to it in the show notes. Our time's all but up, but Lenore, I'd love to do a quick lightning round with you because these are just always fun.
Oh, no. Lightning rounds, oh no.
You're so quirky. You're so fun. You're so quick.
Okay, let's see. Yeah. Okay,
right.
Maybe.
Here we go.
We'll find out.
and quick answers, gut instinct, no need to explain. I recognise that some of these questions do have some context, so if you've got to go into some context, 10 seconds, just really, really tight. Age that a child should be allowed to walk to school alone?
I'll go with my age, 5. I was 5, walked to kindergarten.
I'm sure that a lot of parents just grabbed their heart and went, oh my goodness.
Well, I was going to listen to her TED Talk, but she's a nut. Around the world, it's generally 7.
Sure, okay. Worst phrase in modern parenting?
Worst phrase? Better safe than sorry. As if there's one, either you're safe or you're dead.
Your 9-year-old's subway ride, would you do it again?
Yes.
I figured you'd say that. This one is kind of perplexing for me. Playgrounds, safer now or when you were a kid? And is that what we want?
I think they're physically safer now, but less safe in that they're so boring that nobody goes to them.
I read some really interesting Canadian research last year, or maybe it was the start of this year. I made a really big deal about it on the pod.
I can tell you who it's by, Mariana Brusoni. The kids need risky play.
Yeah, and the likelihood of children hurting themselves in these boring playgrounds is just as high. Like they trip over their feet, they trip over the mat. Like
Berlin started making their playgrounds deliberately more chaotic and slightly quote unquote dangerous or risky because Berlin also pays its insurance, its own insurance for the entire city. And kids were growing up paying so little attention to their whereabouts that they were tripping and falling and
Yeah,
hurting
wow.
themselves. So it's like, well, why don't we raise kids who are a little more aware by starting out on the playground without it just being, slides that are like no higher than a German Shepherd? I mean, they're really boring.
Yeah, false dichotomy here, but let's go with it anyway. Screen time limits or outdoor time requirements? Which one would you say matters more?
Oh, I think that outdoor time requirements is kind of great because I haven't thought of that as a requirement ever. But as someone who grew up in Chicago, which is the coldest place on the planet, don't trust anyone in Siberia, it actually is Chicago.
Right.
I couldn't have stood it for basically October till May. So maybe the requirement is lock a parent in a room for a couple hours. Maybe that's the requirement, so that the kids make dinner or build a fort.
I know some parents would say, please, lock me in the room. The next one, I'd love for you to share the stat that you shared in the TED Talk. The lightning round question is stranger danger, overblown fear, or legitimate concern?
So overblown that I will give you the statistic, which is that if for some reason you wanted your child to be kidnapped by a stranger in a law and order type scenario, how long would you have to keep them outside without you there, completely unattended, for this to be statistically likely to happen? And the answer is, as you well know, 750,000 years.
And then you say, and nobody would want to kidnap them after that long. Which I
Right. I think I say after the first 100,000, they're not even kids anymore.
That's right.
Right.
All right.
But the same Harris poll, I just have to say, asked parents what would likely happen if two 10-year-olds went to the park. And 50% replied they'd be likely to be kidnapped. So we are just completely out of our minds when it comes to the odds of stranger danger.
Yeah, that's astonishing. Last lightning round question. If you could only give parents one permission slip, what would the permission slip say?
Oh, that's interesting. Here's one that I actually think about a lot. If something terrible happens to your kids, I won't blame you.
I like it. I've been saying for the last year or so, your children should do at least one thing every week that could land them in hospital if it goes wrong. People get quite...
That's a guy thing. I would never think that way. Right.
And we've had a couple of kids end up in hospital this year, and yet they love the activities that they were doing, and they can't wait to get back and do those activities again. And there's incredible stories and experiences because they're doing things that help them to find those limits. I love the TED Talk. I love the message that you continually promote around the world, Lenore. The title of the TED Talk is Why You Should Spend Less Time with Your Kids. Lenore, thanks for being on the podcast again.
Thank you, Justin, and hi down there.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Coulson from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides additional research, admin, and other support. And if you'd like more info about anything Lenore has to say, you can check out her links in the show notes, including to her best-selling book, her TED Talk, and for more resources on making your family happier, visit happyfamilies.com.au.